From the star of one of Netflix's latest smash hit shows stating that they weren't happy with a lot of what they were asked to do on set, to actors noting how certain character choices irritated the S-word out of them. These are those times actors openly criticize their own television series. Gareth here from WhatCulture.com, and here are 10 actors who trash their own TV shows. Number 10. Joe Jonas thought some of the writing on Jonas was terrible. Back in 2009, the trio of Joe, Nick, and Kevin Jonas landed their very own Disney Channel show by the name of, you guessed it, Jonas. However, the cheesy show just ended up being a bit of a disaster for the pop star siblings. The lads would even go as far as to call it a big regret when talking about it on their Amazon Prime Video documentary Chasing Happiness, with Joe also telling Vulture back in 2013 that some of the writing on it was terrible, and a lot of the jokes were weird slapstick humour that only a 10-year-old would laugh at. Not even 2 dodgy seasons of Jonas could keep this pop group from taking the world by storm though, as the band just released their 6th album this year. Nick and Joe in particular have each enjoyed a few decent roles on the big screen in recent times too, so they're doing alright. Number 9. Kate chasing men around on Lost irritated the S-word out of Evangeline Lilly. On top of claiming on the Lost Boys podcast that she thought Kate became more and more obnoxious and predictable as her story unfolded, Evangeline Lilly would also admit that the fact the Lost character went from being an autonomous figure to one who simply chased around men on screen irritated the S-word out of her. Things got so frustrating for the star whilst working on the sci-fi epic that she recalled launching scripts across the room after reading them and seeing the increasing lack of her own story being told on the pages. Lily still did all she could in later seasons to show her strength though, and would actually admit that some of the things that did annoy her, like Kate chasing after Jack and getting caught by the others, helped show how her character was flawed and that even iconic on-screen women didn't have to be perfect. Number 8. Community's Chevy Chase classed sitcom as the lowest form of television. When talking about his reasons for stepping into the role of Pierce Hawthorne in the first place, Chevy Chase would tell the Huffington Post back in 2012 that he thought the pilot script was funny, and it wasn't long before he was telling the folks behind the show that he'd love to play the moist towelette millionaire. Rather than sticking with the show because he loved the idea of being a part of such a beloved sitcom though, the National Lampoon icon would admit that he simply stuck around because he wanted to take care of his family by earning loads of that sitcom dollar. When asked whether he enjoys his time working on TV shows, Chase would also state that while he loved the kids, the cast on Community, the hours working on it were hideous. He'd also openly confessed that it was still a sitcom on television, which in his mind is probably the lowest form of television. Unsurprisingly, Chase ended up departing the show after 4 seasons in the wake of not being happy with the direction of his character and clashing with creator Dan Harmon and his fellow stars. Number 7. Blake Lively thought Gossip Girl was a little personally compromising. When talking to Allure magazine about her time in Gossip Girl, Blake Lively will confess that while folks clearly love what the gang produced in the end, she always felt it was a little personally compromising, and that you want to be putting a better message out there. The Serena van der Woodsen star also wasn't exactly over the moon about the fact people assumed they knew her really well, with the actor going as far as to state that she would not be proud to be the person who gave someone the cocaine that made them overdose, and then shot someone and slept with someone else's boyfriend. Yeah, that is pretty horrendous. Simply put, Lively evidently wasn't Gossip Girl or Van der Woodsen's biggest fan in the end. Number 6. Johnny Depp thought 21 Jump Street became an action-packed can of soup in season 3. In the wake of enjoying his time making the first 2 seasons of the police procedural 21 Jump Street, Johnny Depp would openly tell Insider in 1989 that things started to get a little showboaty in season 3, and the show eventually turned into an action-packed can of soup. Depp was so fed up with the idea of showing up to set and playing Tom Hansen for months on end, it even got to the point where he tried to get himself fired from the show. He'd finally get his wish after season 4, exiting the series and pursuing film roles that helped distance himself from the teen idol status he'd picked up whilst working on the show that ended up feeling like a product. However, he was still clearly happy to chuck in a little nod to his time on the show in the 2012 big screen adaptation of it, hilariously taking a bullet in the neck during his Hansen comeback. Number 5. Katherine Heigl declines Emmy consideration due to Grey's Anatomy's material not warranting it. Katherine Heigl suddenly decided in 2008 that she didn't deserve to be nominated for an Emmy that year, because she didn't feel the material she'd been given during the latest season of Grey's Anatomy was worthy of such an honor. However, in the years that would follow Heigl's infamous decision to decline Emmy consideration that year, the star did acknowledge on the Howard Stern show how difficult it must have been for the writers to try and craft juicy, dramatic, emotional material for 12 series regulars. And while Heigl would eventually leave the show 2 seasons later, she was quick to apologize to showrunner Shonda Rhimes for publicly calling out the quality of the writing on the series. The knocked-up star also noted earlier this year in a Variety chat with Grey's co-star Ellen Pompeo how she didn't realize she'd received such a strong reaction for her comments, and it had taken nearly a decade for her to tune out the noise and realize that while Heigl did think she was so naive in the way she handled the scenario, she wasn't unprofessional or difficult for speaking her mind. Number 4, Angus T Jones asked you not to watch 2.5 Men. After 10 years of playing Jake Harper on one of the most popular sitcoms of all time, Angus T Jones suddenly decided he was done with Chuck Lorre's comedy hit, and you should be too. Taking to YouTube in a video testimonial for Forerunner Christian Church, Jones would blast the show that he'd been starring in since 2003 as filth, and begged those watching his words to stop watching 2.5 Men. Jones would eventually be written out of the show as a main character, and only make sporadic appearances in the seasons that followed his controversial comments, though the young actor was quick to apologize for his infamous YouTube words in a statement to Deadline. However, he would then later call himself a paid hypocrite for appearing on the show for so long, state how the sitcom was making light of topics in our world that are really problems for a lot of people, and claim that while he was apologetic for attacking Lorre's baby, he didn't regret taking aim at the show. Number 3, Jenna Ortega wasn't happy with many of the things she was asked to do in Wednesday. On top of being reluctant to accept the role in the first place, when Jenna Ortega did finally agree to go full Wednesday for Netflix, she'd eventually note on the Armchair Expert podcast that a lot of what the character was doing in the script, like being involved in a love triangle, did not make sense for her character at all. Ortega would claim that there were even times on set where she became almost unprofessional, changing lines that made no sense and vetoing a bizarre flash mob sequence in place of her now iconic dancing moments in order to protect her character. And there also wasn't ever a moment the star found herself heading home after a day of shooting the eventual hit and thinking, okay, that should be fine. In the end, the fact her confidence was massively knocked by the experience of shooting the series and having to put her foot down so much on set, left Ortega struggling to deal with the fact she's now primarily known for this star-making performance, which she calls not her proudest moment internally. Number 2, Citadel star Leslie Manville won't watch violence and is offended by it. This year's Amazon Prime big-budget action thriller by the name of Citadel definitely boasts its fair share of hard-hitting violence, with the likes of Richard Madden and Priyanka Chopra throwing down and getting their asses whooped by various bad guys throughout. But when talking to The Guardian about the series earlier this year, it became clear that the pair's co-star, Leslie Manville, wasn't what you'd call the most passionate supporter of the sort of violence seen going down in her own show. According to the star, she actually doesn't watch any violence, and went as far as to note how she hates it. Admittedly, she hadn't actually seen the final edit of Citadel at the time she was interviewed, and wasn't aware of the full extent of the violence on show. But that still didn't stop Manville from slamming the likes of Game of Thrones due to it being pretty violent towards women. So you can bet she won't be in a rush to watch Chopra fending off some nasty blokes on a train on Prime Video anytime soon. Number 1, Game of Thrones was too painful to watch for Stephen Delaney. When talking to Radio Times about his spell as the Lord of Dragonstone Stannis Baratheon on screen, British thespian Stephen Delaney honestly noted how he felt a lot of the Throne's action was pretty brutal and that he couldn't watch much of that anyway. It's hardcore, too tough for him, it's just too painful. And while he would quickly add that it was an extraordinary thing and an amazing phenomenon, Delaney wasn't afraid to admit that money was the main thing he got out of the massive global television hit. It does seem like the star did at least very much enjoy his time on set with the likes of Liam Cunningham and Carice Van Houten. This brutally honest actor simply didn't get much professional or personal satisfaction out of playing the bloke who burned his own daughter alive. Yeah, pretty hard to smile after that day on set, isn't it? And that's our list. Know any other actors who trash their own TV shows? Let us know all about them in the comment section right down below, and don't forget to like, share, and click on that subscribe button while you're down there. Also, if you're a fan of this sort of thing, then please head on over to whatculture.com and find some more fantastic articles just like the one this video you're watching right now is based on. I've been Gareth from whatculture.com. Cheers for watching this video today, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Bye bye!